Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you again. We are very excited to be here. This event, it marks our first webinar of 2024, which is always exciting. And we've taken the last couple of months to look back and reflect on the webinars we hosted last year, calendar them out against everything else we have planned for 2024, which is more than we did last year as it relates to webinars and training opportunities that we'll be hosting virtually and in person. So I'm looking forward to this year's events, and we appreciate your attendance and continued registration in these industry level events where we get to talk about software, the process of adoption and implementation of a system like ProLinkHFA, and then also feature areas of our functionality that are either industry concerns that are happening in that moment, in that month that we host the webinar, or our consistent interest from our clients. So today, for ProLinkHFA webinar, we're going to talk about key staffing considerations when adopting software. This is kind of an area that I like to start our year off with. Last year, we did a kind of a similar approach in discussing adoption at the beginning of the year. And I hope it's an opportunity for all of us to reflect on how to kind of pursue those goals that we might have across your agencies and ProLink, how we play into those goals as your technology partner, so that we get the most we can out of this year. So I hope this serves you well. Please reach out if there's any questions after we present. Today, I'm going to just cover general information for a few minutes here for anyone new tuning in, and then we'll go over our business presentation for the rest of the session. So I'm Kreuter. I'm the Executive Vice President for ProLink. I oversee new business development and relationship management with all of our clients. One of my main responsibilities is managing our customer success program, which involves pretty much every department at ProLink contributes to that area. And it's really about ensuring that our clients come into their partnership with us, go through that implementation stage, and are set up for long-term success. So that's really my role and passion in working with ProLink and our partners. I'm looking forward to this year ahead. And then Dee, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Dee Pucciarelli, and I am the Director of Customer Success. I also manage the PMO. And basically, I'm in charge of the project management side of the implementation. And my goal regarding customer success is to, as we move into the implementation, we start building and elaborating and developing that software adoption strategy to set up your staff for success as we transition you guys to the customer success program with Bree.
Yep. Thank you, Dee. So she's going to be she's going to be presenting alongside of me for today's session. So quickly, just going over who ProLink is, we do have, according to the registrations for this event, we may have some new folks in the room with us today, the virtual room with us today. So ProLink has been a provider in the affordable housing industry for the past 20 plus years now. Our clients kind of span across multiple different players in the industry. Really, our core is with our affordable housing agencies, state and local housing agencies, but we also support a few clients who are tax credit syndicators and investors in affordable, as well as developers. And we're also starting to provide services and technical support to property managers and owners as well, with a system called Procorum, which many of you are probably familiar with. It's our portal system that we use to facilitate collaboration between parties. And it really is purpose-built for affordable housing. So our work has always really been focused on the concept of creating a holistic platform that can support our agencies with their deal lifecycle from origination through asset management compliance and all the steps they're beyond. And so not only through your deal life cycle, but then also connecting holistically the parties involved. That is an area that we are really focused on, I would say, in 2024, as well as expanding on that, making sure that we are being as efficient as we can with the information that we're all collecting. So starting with that tenant, moving towards that property manager, owner, agent who's collecting data and supplying that out to the parties that require that information. We're all using the same data. And so as much as we can bring consistency and confidence to the data that we're using and eliminate unnecessary steps in between, the more money we save for the goal of providing more affordable housing, and the easier and more pleasant our jobs are on a daily basis. So our team is dedicated to the mission of affordable housing. I will say that is something that we ask and really need to feel from every person that we hire, that they're in this with a real passion for what we feel that we're contributing towards at the end of the day, in improving affordable housing across our nation. But we are technologists with a number of our people who have either come from industry, come from the affordable industry, or have developed very much an expertise in working with our clients for so many years over our tenure in the industry. So between our familiarity and expertise in affordable and our technical expertise, it really does set us up for great positioning and supporting our clients well, with such a complicated and interesting industry that we all play in here. So just a couple areas to highlight as well related to our leadership in affordable. So right now, I'm crossing my fingers to hopefully next month be able to share with you a couple additional housing agencies that we're supporting. But currently, 17 state housing finance agencies make up our client list for our public sector, as well as 2 supportive services agencies that are based in California and New York. And then again, we do support in private sector those 5 syndicators and investors. Industry partnerships are important to us. It's so great to see our clients and just our industry partners, throughout the year. NCSHA really helps us facilitate that. We're a big sponsor of their events, and we just love that partnership. And so we involve each other in our conferences. We're certainly involved in theirs, and they've certainly been involved in ours over the years as well. NAMA XML Standards Group is another group that we work with and actually help facilitate on Procorum. And that group is a standards group deciding, basically lobbying for changes required in the XML standard coming out of that property management software, and facilitating the ability to automatically upload data into ProLinkHFA, so eliminating manual data entry for things like tenant events. So we do keep up and try to work with that standards group, which includes representation from many of the leading property management tools out there, as well as companies like ProLink, who are trying to support our clients in getting that information from other parties. Industry education has certainly been a growing focus area for us, especially since we had such a shift in our remote workspace across the world, right? And so we did start this webinar series. I think we were just reflecting on it, trying to guess how many number of webinars we've done to date. And I think we started this series around 2021. And so our ProLinkHFA webinar series is here to stay. We also started back our Procorum webinar series last summer. We're intending to continue with that as well and share news about the changes and updates and opportunities we have with that product particularly, both for our agency clients, but also for developers and owner agents, as I spoke to earlier. We host a virtual user group training event called ProLink Tech Live, which we welcome everyone to attend that, whether you're a client of ours or not. It's a great opportunity to kind of get behind the scenes, look at ProLink without it really being a demo. It's in the weeds because it's training, but you really get a sense of being part of our client community in that event. And then this year, I'm so excited, we are bringing back our in-person user conference. So before going virtual more, we hosted an in-person training event. We didn't have ProLink Tech Live. We didn't do that virtually. It was in person. So then when we did go virtual and opened our training event up to be online, we had so many more people able to attend because we didn't have the travel. And so we don't want to lose that. We have, I think, over 200 attendees join that Tech Live event virtually for training. We're definitely keeping that. But in addition to that, we're also hosting an in-person event to facilitate kind of the strategic partnership that we like to keep with our user group, our super users, and talking about our roadmap and the changes we have planned for ProLink. And then finally, we have our technology leadership effort. All of ProLink's products are supported and served on Amazon Web Services. So they're all web-based platformed. And then we have done some integrations with other leading technology out there like DocuSign. So that was something that we integrated with our ProLink Plus product for the Homeowner Assistance Fund program. And we continue. I mean, we don't need to be everything. We don't need to recreate the wheel when we have these great industry leading tools out there. So as much as we can leverage those with ProLink HFA and the rest of our products, that's what we look to do. Okay, this is just a snapshot to represent the 17 agencies that I spoke to earlier across the nation. So thank you very much. I guess it's a good little shameless plug for me to say thank you for being our partners for those who are tuned in today. This is a picture, if you're new to ProLink or maybe new to your agency, of the kind of ecosystem of the ProLink technology stack that our agencies are using. So you can see ProLink HFA represented at the top with our housing finance agencies. That's your back office database system. That's like your in-house system that you're using. And then Procorum is our front office portal system. And that's where you're really facilitating what we like to call the messy deal room, but really your external collaboration with your partners, developers, contractors, property managers, all get invited into that space to provide information and work with you. And then that information can then be pushed to ProLink HFA. So that is how our product suite works together to support your needs. And this final slide for our introduction is just a quick picture of our ProLink HFA module. So we do, like I discussed earlier, we really are focused and pride ourselves on covering the full life cycle of our agency portfolio. So starting out at that origination stage with our multifamily development and bond financing module. Then we also have our asset management and compliance module that plugs right into the information that really originates in that first orange module. We have single family development, and then we have a number of other modules that we have developed over the years to support programs and initiatives, including supportive services, REO, Budget Pro. Budget Pro is a construction draw management tool that we have developed as well. So probably more than even's listed there, but those are some of the highlights. And I will go ahead and head into our business presentation now. I'm going to kick us off here and just orient ourselves. I want to just also call out, as we are talking implementation to some degree on this webinar, we're going to be talking about that early stage. Many of our attendees today are way past implementation, have been clients of ProLinks for years. And this webinar will certainly speak to that as well. So it kind of, I like to think of this as like setting the table for our monthly business review meetings that we have with our existing clients. So please, you know, I hope that you find this kind of a good, refreshing opportunity for us to reset and vision together what we can do in our customer success program and partnership together. But kind of starting at that bird's eye view and thinking way back to the beginning of your implementation stage. So when I'm thinking about software adoption resourcing and how that implementation stage is going to translate into your ongoing success, your ongoing sort of nurturing of this partnership with ProLink, your technology needs and filling those over time. At the implementation stage, you're going to have representatives from many departments involved, right? So you have tax credit people, development, compliance, asset management, finance, whoever is kind of representing the modules, the areas of functionality that you intend to adopt. So for the most part, it could include all of these folks. It could be that you just implemented asset management compliance during your implementation, and therefore that's a smaller group. But you'll have those representatives that really reflect the goal for adoption across the modules that we offer in that implementation stage. And then once you finish that implementation and successfully hit that go live mark, there's a lot that kind of translates out of the implementation. It's not just kind of like a seal of approval and set on the shelf. There's plenty of things that can fall out of implementation and continue needing attention. Things like process or technical gaps that maybe were tabled at the time and need to be addressed more in customer success. There could be training, reinforcement of training, or maybe even things that were discovered during implementation that weren't part of the original scope, but things that you really want to accomplish or take a look at. The group that starts in that implementation phase, they're the ones who really come up with that list, right? Including with ProLink's involvement, you can see our logo included in that implementation group. So we come up with that list, and it's so important then that the representatives involved in that implementation stage really kind of continue on to develop and see that list through to the solutions that we can provide for those areas. So, you're coming up with process improvements, training strategies, technical solutions, even adoption roadmaps and schedules for hitting those things if there's things that you might have discovered and want to pursue in customer success. And so when you have that transition occur, you land then with me in customer success after you're live, and you establish what we have gratefully sort of adopted to call the ProLink Operational Excellence Team, or the POET team, which is something actually Main Housing, one of our more recent implementations, they came up with that little acronym there. We all need more acronyms in our lives. So we like that one. Thank you very much, Maine. That's your shout out. And that does represent, it's a great name to represent the group that we're really looking to develop and kind of discover and identify out of that implementation team. And the goal of that group is to focus on operational excellence, considering how you're going to use ProLinkHFA to support that, software adoption. So it's kind of like a gym membership. When you're using a system like ProLinkHFA, you should have a vision of, what you're going to need next, what we can improve on, and how we're going to get there. And we should be involved in helping you identify that plan and execute it. And then building a lasting partnership, making sure that we have a good relationship. ProLink likes to be considered, our ideal is to be considered kind of an extension of your staff. As much as we can feel that and facilitate that in our relationship, it really makes us more effective as your partner. So then I'm going to hand it over to Dee. I kind of flipped from that slide quickly. We're going to provide this slide deck after we're done with the presentation here, but I did want to set the stage. So now you can see implementation, transition to customer success. Dee's going to talk a little bit about the implementation stage, and then I'll talk a little bit more about some of the responsibilities and people involved in that POET group in customer success.
So Bree, before you move on to this particular slide, can we go back to the other slide? I just want to call out to everybody attending that when you start your implementation, you already selected your software and you are about to embark with us in that implementation. Your software adoption resourcing strategy is basically the basis for your overall software adoption strategy that should start sometimes even before your implementation starts, but throughout the implementation, the transition, and then post go live when you started working with Bree. So when we're talking about resourcing a strategy, you already need to have in mind what are those benefits and goals and needs, of why are you going to, why are you using ProLink, and who can support those goals? Who can help the agency make those benefits a reality? So when you are talking about that implementation team, you need to think about which staff members basically you are going to handpick to be able to support this through our inception all the way into the future.
Yep.
Now, from the implementation resources approach, like I mentioned before, when it's super important for you guys to have already an idea of who do you want in that team. You already know that you selected ProLink. There are certain items, requirements, needs, business needs that you are looking for this ProLink software to fulfill for you, and eventually make your team successful, make your team more productive, and streamline processes and so forth. So when we are talking about resourcing, you need to make sure that you handpick the right people. So think about it from the perspective of a quarter, and you have both sides. You have a technical side, which is your implementation, and then you also have the people side, which is your staff in addition to the team. So for ProLink, we know that each implementation is different, and even when we are implementing the same product suite, it all depends on the agency size, their needs, their resources, and of course, we are going to adapt to our clients' needs and how we are to come up with that implementation approach. But in our experience with all the implementations that we have done, what you see right now here is what we would recommend. Two of the things that is highly overlooked by agencies and any organization for that matter when doing software implementations is we don't have dedicated resources as an organization. Like on your side, you don't have dedicated resources that can stop working and just be dedicated to a project. That's one. And then two, you need to start mitigating the fact that it's an intense endeavor to have that implementation. It takes 12 months to do an implementation, which means the people that you are selecting for this need to be involved in that implementation, plus keep up with their normal operations and normal work as we do the implementation. So in order to mitigate that, this is how we would recommend to our new agencies that we want to set up the implementation for resourcing approach. So in here, you'll see that you have your project core team, and everything is a SWAT team. And for those of you that are not familiar with the concept of a SWAT team, it's basically a small team that this team is empowered to not only work on your project, but they are empowered to make decisions. You want them to make, cut the red tape and being able to make decisions on behalf of the departments that they represent, the staff, to implement a process to determine what is the best way to implement that process and then how to support it. So from that, what you see here are different work streams. So we are suggesting that you will have your project core team, which is going to be your business leads. You will have your project sponsor. If you have a PM on your side, or a project lead will also be part of that core team that is responsible for the evaluation of your current processes. And then how the to-be processes are going to be developed and then implemented to support your operations. They are also responsible for the overall success of the implementation. Then a different set, not the same people. This is what we want to emphasize. Not the same people will be in the project team, in the project core team that is going to be involved in the data migration. So for the data migration from the agency side, you will have that IT liaison that understand where the data is, where the data sources, how the data flow from different applications and systems in the backend. And then you will have that business data owner or business lead that is going to be working hand in hand with the business leads that are in the project core team. But this particular group is responsible for the data migration, data validation, and data cleanup efforts. Then you have the system integration that in some cases is basically the same team as the data migration. But if there are any integrations needed, coordinating the integration, is it internal application, third-party vendors, who's going to test it, who's going to build it, that's that particular one. For those of you that will be implementing the dev module, the task ready module, or even if it's just asset management, they are going to be certain forms and documents that you want to convert into Smart Docs, because Smart Doc will help you auto-populate those forms or take the information from those forms and upload that into the system. So for that, if that is needed, then we will require someone from the operations, the business lead, subject matter expert that understand the forms, how they're using and how they're using in the process. We always want them to be empowered to make decisions, but if they are not, then we need to have someone like a manager or a department head to make decisions, regarding the process in that form. And then someone that could be from the technical side in IT, or someone that is highly proficient with Excel that we can train through the process of the implementation and how to not only do the mapping, but maintenance and support of this form going forward after implementation. Again, every single one of these teams are small. They need to be able to be empowered to work independently, but also being able to collaborate with the core project team. You will have new development if needed. That means new programming, new coding, something new that we have to build for you guys, and someone on your agency and your operations, it will be the expert on that particular process that will work with our development team. And then the steering committee is just executive management, executive sponsors, project sponsors, stakeholders, where we are going to be meeting on a monthly basis to provide progress reports and escalations, and if there are any changes in scope, budget, and schedule. Now, everything that we're talking right now and what I mentioned is from the technical side. When you talk about all these teams, especially with the steering committee, they all play a role in your software adoption strategy as we are going through the implementation. You want to make sure that these people work with whoever on your side is responsible for the communication, the software adoption, making sure that your staff that is not involved in the team are in the know of what's going on in the communication, cheerleaders, basically champions for the software. So when the time comes for them to be trained, this is not news to them. And they are more in yes, I want to learn, this is awesome, it's acceptable for me. So always think about how this team and all these business leads not only are going to support your implementation from a technical side, but also support your implementation from a software adoption side. To be successful in this, definitely you need to have the executive and project sponsor support. They need to make sure that the team on their side understand that they are empowered to make decisions, and they're going to be backup, that they understand that this is a priority for the team, and that the team understand that it is a priority, it is important, that they know what your objectives are and your goals are. The business leads, on the other hand, they need to understand urgency and priority, and making sure that if this is what we're working on, we do understand that you have another job, but this is your priority. And it is the executive and project sponsors and stakeholders to facilitate that, to make sure that they have the time to allocate to the implementation. For the team members, they need to be, agile on their feet. They need to be proactive. They need to be out of the box thinkers. And they also need to have in front of them, first and foremost, all the agency goals and all the benefits that they want to achieve by using our software. And then they have to be good with sharing their knowledge, expertise, and progress. Next week. Advantages to having this set up in this fashion: not only we are mitigating the workload for having just one team trying to do everything. We are mitigating the workload. We are mitigating burnout. We're also promoting software adoption through all these efforts. So, and if you have to go in parallel, working on multiple streams at the same time, your implementation will be done in a lesser time than only one team having to work on all this in a waterfall fashion. So many advantages to just follow this. And of course, we will modify it as needed. Now we'll talk about the roles. Again, always remember there's two sides. You have the people side and then you have the technical side. And each one of these project team members have a role to play in your software adoption and in your technical adoption. So we already talked about the executive sponsor, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But executive sponsor for the software adoption, cheerleaders. They need to basically be champions of the implementation. They need to set the tone and let the entire agency staff know how important this is for the agency. What are the goals and what are the benefits, and set the priority for them. The project sponsor is basically the link between the executive sponsors, the team, ProLink. They're also responsible for the success of the implementation. They make sure that we have all the resources needed from a team perspective, and decision making, very active during the implementation. Also, on the other side of the coin, responsible for the software adoption strategy. Stakeholders. For the stakeholders, those are the people that are either impacted by the implementation, by the new software. Maybe they're affected by it. Maybe they think they are impacted or affected by it. Regardless, these stakeholders are part of your implementation, because we need to make sure that they are on the known, that they understand why, and in the event that we need resources, that they know that this is a priority, and that they work with the team, the project sponsor, to make sure the implementation is a success. Project lead. So project lead, in brief, you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to combine project lead with the project manager. Ideally, you will have your project lead, and you will also have a project manager. Sometimes it could be the same person. You will have a project lead that is going to work with, my team or myself on coordinating all the activities for the project, as a project manager role. Or if you have a project manager, which would be ideally, then the project manager will work with the project lead on the coordination. And you need to have that because, yes, you'll have meetings with ProLink team. We are going to be working on all these multiple work streams. However, you are going to be meeting internally in the coordination of the implementation. Let's call it homework. So if we have a data validation or working on data migration, you will have your internal meeting to work on those. If we have a process map that you need to review, you will need an internal meeting to review that. So it's important that you have someone on your side, a project team lead or a project manager, to help coordinate those on your side. Also, from a people perspective, it is the project lead, the project sponsor, and the project manager who will work with a change manager if you have one. If not, they will play the role of a change manager because they are responsible for the software adoption development during the implementation. And then the project sponsor will be responsible for the execution after the fact and working with Bree during, the normal customer support maintenance, especially during the customer success program. Business lead, handpick, and you'll see that some of these roles have a little star next to it. Is because I'm highlighting that these are the people that you're investing their time to become the super users, to become the members of the poet team, to become the champions of the software after we go live. And they are going to be the leads on training the staff, making sure they understand the new process, supporting them, raising up any concerns. So right now, they're just business leads working with us. And eventually at the end, they'll be that super user for you. They're responsible for leading the efforts, also responsible for each of the areas. So it's a group, what we're talking about, on processes, on system, on reporting, procedures, then for training, reinforcement training, and of course, they're a key component of your software adoption strategy. Subject matter experts are not per se part of the project team, but this is the people that are the expert on a particular process. So at any given point in time, those business leads might call upon them to join the team on a working session for a particular process, and they are the experts on, on legislations, policies, best practices, standards. How do we do it today? What we need to preserve when we go forward into the future. But it's only on an as-needed basis, for particular places, particular processes. And then organizational change manager. If the agency has an organizational change manager, or if they have like a PMO team that is in charge of software adoption and organizational change management strategies, that would be great. But in my experience, for most cases, this role is split between the project sponsor, the project manager, and the lead. How are we going to make sure that we obtain the ROI, the investment in this particular software? How are we going to make sure that it's adopted? And it cannot be an afterthought, because then it's never going to happen. And you're going to find yourself 1 or 2 years in the future with the software, the investment not being adopted, no realizing benefits. So if you don't have an organizational change manager, that's fine. But I would encourage you to take that into consideration to start working on your software strategy, software adoption strategy. ProLink doesn't provide that change management role, but certainly we will support you. And through the implementation, I'm going to be sprinkling ideas and, activities that you can do. And if you do have those, we will support you with content. We will support you with, inclusion and training plans. What would be the best way? Bree is here to show you all that as we move on into our next, as you move on into your customer success program. I think this is my last slide. Yeah.
Okay, we just have a few minutes left and just enough time for me to go back, kind of time that in. So we're talking about implementation with all of that content and the players involved. And then we get into customer success, and you're going to take that implementation team and you're going to kind of even SWAT further down to that POET team, to that core team for customer success, which is also kind of that small and mighty team approach that we like to see. Just like a little bit of a vision of what the responsibilities and importance that we see as part of that POET group. Responsibilities include things like identifying and delivering reinforcement training opportunities across the departments using ProLink, making sure that as new staff comes in, or if things need to be refreshed, or processes, maybe seasonal activities are coming up, that the team is prepared to handle those with training. Reviewing our regular release notes and discussing how new functionality would affect your agency is part of that group responsibility. Escalating and discussing functionality and process issues, because it's a continuous process there. Attending our webinars and trainings such as this, being familiar with what ProLink is doing and being able to translate that into productive opportunities for your agency. Managing user group entry. So that's something that we tend to focus on, usually 1 session per year, where we're talking more specifically about our user group. But we appropriate a budget every year and allow our users to vote on new feature opportunities and fund basically the development of those. So that group of our POET group is typically the people who are involved in our user group as well. You're attending your monthly business review meetings. MBR stands for monthly business review, which is the meeting that I hold with every one of our clients. You're making budget decisions and managing and participating in the prioritization of any change requests or projects that you have on the docket for the year. Really, the POET team, I've seen this in many different flavors executed across our client base. There's a lot of different ways to make this work. You don't have to have, you can see on the very end, on the right-hand side, we're talking about the members of this team. Certainly executive sponsor, champion, evangelist, that's what's going to make this team effective and give them the authority that they need. That team lead is extremely important. And then 2 representatives from each department. I've seen that, certainly, that's what we would advise. I've also seen other clients that have been using ProLink for a long time where that executive sponsor and team lead also are so tuned in or involved with those departments that it's a smaller team, or even a team of one or two. So it can be different depending on the needs of your agency and how involved those two first levels are with the other departments. But in general, the more if we have representation, at least like 1 to 2 across the departments who are using ProLinkHFA, it's just like it facilitates more ideas, right? It helps us to cover our bases and make sure that information is really shared and captured by ProLink and across that team. And finally, a technical liaison as well. Sometimes that technical liaison, again, is part of the team lead could be really technical and support that role as well. In some cases, it depends on how long you've been a client with us. I know some very technically advanced people who also represent that team lead at ProLink in our NBRs. So, but the importance, that group provides in the center here, why is ProLink important? Staff inclusion, empowerment, and ownership, making ProLink something that is a consideration in changes that are happening operationally in the agency is important, so that we can continue to evolve with you, and we're there in the ways that you need us there over time. Creating a platform where staff can discuss and share tips and quickly resolve issues. So not letting things hang out and complacency kind of exist in our world. That sucks when you're doing the same thing that you don't like doing forever. We want to flesh that stuff out as quickly as we can, reduce resistance and increase productivity and adoption, quality and operational efficiency, and then helping really at the end of the day. One of the things that we've started doing a number of years ago now, but it feels like yesterday, is during the implementation kickoff, which we just had one today, we always talk about the main goals. Like, why did you decide to go with ProLink? What were those agency main initiatives and goals when you made the decision to join ProLink and to use ProLink? And tying back in your customer success model and your POET team to make sure that we're still supporting those things and that we're still thriving with those core missions in mind is so important and really does facilitate a better relationship as your partner. So just to finalize, I'm kind of excited about this last slide, so stick with us for just a couple more minutes. One of the things that I have received feedback on from our existing clients is wanting to see more visibility in what independently we're doing with our clients. So we have many opportunities to get together through user group, but then we also have opportunities where we're working on change requests, specific projects with our agencies, and those are separate projects. And so I want to do a better job this year of bringing those, sharing that across our group, across our client base, to let you guys know what we're working on with your peers. So this is a list of some of the current change requests and projects that we're doing or have just concluded doing over the last year or so, over 2023. We're doing some report writing support, which is kind of an ongoing thing as new reports are needed, and technical staff, it varies across our agencies depending on how many resources they have. So sometimes we'll come in and really do that. In other cases, the agency will write that on behalf of their team. So we do have some projects going on in that area. Origination, adoption. So that is our Dev and TC modules, and that is related to a client who is using us for asset management and compliance and is now taking on the origination, really looking to implement that module. And that project includes, it's like a little mini implementation. So when you think about the POET team, that core team that's supporting your adoption ongoing, and then you think about everything Dee said about that wider group involved in the implementation, well, that POET team is going to bring in subject matter experts and business leads as needed to handle some of the projects that you guys decide to take on in that POET team, just like an implementation. So in that case, there's other individuals who are coming in to be involved in those projects. Diversity compliance module is something I'm really excited about. We built that many years ago for a kind of a custom module for one of our clients, and now we are adopting that module with a second user. One of our it's a module that we built years ago. We have a client that's been with us for years. who's starting that adoption process. Again, kind of like a mini implementation there. We have a compliance engine adoption, so same modules, Dev and TC, but focused on compliance engine. We have state rental assistance program, design, development, and adoption. So last year we built, kind of concluded the build of a state rental assistance custom module for one of our clients. I know everybody has state programs as well as the federal level LIHTC program. So that was a great kind of project to be, it's going to be a great white paper at some point to talk about how that module was built to support those state rental assistance needs. We have a state loan program, end-to-end life cycle project that we're working on, going into phase 2 of that project with one of our clients, where they were awarded additional, like a new loan program was enacted in the state and needed quick, it was a kind of a high priority to get out and available, and the origination process to be facilitated. So just concluding that. Department level training refreshers, so that, you know, continues to be something that is expected, right? Across your agency, you're going to see retirement, you're going to see staff change over time, and it's important to make sure that we train and review the original vision of how things were done in ProLink. Does that still make sense for who's doing it now and the way the organization is arranged? And can we offer training to get everybody kind of back up to that level playing field? And finally, NAMA XML upload support. So we are in the season of tenant event compliance, and we are offering and engaged to support some of our owner agents with tenant event reporting, getting that information out of those property management systems and into ProLinkHFA, making that process easier. So all of this to say, it's great information, I think, hopefully for our existing clients to have a vision of, you know, some of the projects going on with your peers, but also a good opportunity for me to tie back in that POET model. I have down here just at the end, about half of our clients are following a POET model. And in our experience, in my experience, it really does empower specific staff to develop and oversee those adoption initiatives, which translate into projects like the ones listed here. So that group really is the one who's spearheading and developing projects like this out of that team, right? We can get a lot done together. So with that, thank you for sticking with me a few minutes over. We do have our next webinar coming up here. It'll be March 6th, same time at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about implementation and adoption retrospective. So actually talking about some of the old implementations, or not old, but recent ones that are now concluded in live, some of our lessons learned there. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And Happy New Year to those who are joining us for the first time. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye, guys.